At this time, I would like to invite our President, Cecil Huey, to say a few words.
I've learned to turn this microphone up high, and I'm beginning to believe that we have a little riser back here, but I think we need a trap door as well and step down into here. The emphasis today are our volunteers, and UUFC is its volunteers. You know, I think there's no question about that. And when I think about the fellowship and all that goes on, I'm kind of reminded of the Richard Scarry book, What Do People Do All Day? Probably if you've got grandkids or kids, you've read that. And if I was a little better artist, I would try to construct such a thing for this fellowship. It sort of shows what happens in a community, in Richard Scarry's case, a little town, and in our case, this fellowship. But it's really remarkable. And we celebrate our volunteers, and I think we ought to, as we celebrate it, note the number and the remarkable degree to which people are involved in this fellowship. Now, we all know that for everything there's a time and a season, and I think for everything there's a scholar to study it as well. And scholars have studied churches, and there's a sort of a lexicon that applies to the size of congregations. And most of you have heard some comments to this. Terry's talked about it, and it's been talked about in other groups. But there's, in the terminology applied, family-sized congregations that are membership up to around 50. And that's where we were for a good long time. And in such groups, things just operate like an extended family. There are matriarchs and patriarchs and customary practices and things that kind of normal for families. And then there's a pastoral-sized congregation from about 50 to 150 members. And so we're at the threshold of that now, you see, kind of approaching an inevitable transition to a little bit larger form that has, by necessity, to operate a little bit differently. The pastoral-sized congregations, as defined by the scholars, they're within it, within the larger group, networks, sort of additional families, and kind of center around a minister. But most members yet recognize each other and recognize visitors. That is the size that most everybody knows everybody, and if a new person appears one Sunday, we recognize that that's a new face, and so we can respond in a certain way. But we're at the threshold of that. And so the next size is identified, are program-sized congregations, where we begin to have separate things, separate programs for children, separate programs for younger adults, separate programs for mature people, you know, and all sorts of things. But we begin to have these programs, and it's these programs that then are sort of the contact point for new members approaching the congregation and entering. And I've spent some time Googling these things, and it's interesting what you can find. And what I found a lot of interesting things. And if you look at advice that's there for guiding congregations, I mean, quite frequently the advice is for me to go home and pray about it, you know. And I'm not sure that's helping me, you know. But there's other advice. But the most interesting thing, I think, and I mentioned this in a newsletter article, it says change is inevitable, but the misery is optional, you know. So we're here confronted with no option but for this transition, and so we're going to have to you know, we're just going to have to recognize that change is inevitable, but we got to have fun doing it, you know, not misery. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about this at the congregational meeting, but we are kind of examining the organization now, not reorganizing, but just examining and figuring out where we might need to adjust things a little bit. Because if you start counting up our committees and counting up the board positions and counting up this, that, and everything else, you suddenly come to numbers that exceed our membership, you know. So people are busy, you know, so we need to refine that a little bit, and that's just a practical matter that we can confront, and we can do that, and it's no problems. But I'm like most of you, I think. I've been involved in groups, other churches, or other organizations that are primarily driven by volunteers, and I believe that there's a pace, and there's not a thing you can do about this pace. Things move at this pace, and so we just need to get in step with the change that's sort of occurring and do it happily and look forward to the future. And so I'll mention a little bit more about that when we have our congregational meeting, but what I would encourage you to do is just keep watching and have fun and help everyone decide what to do, just like we would as a family and as we will continue to do as a larger group, I think. So celebrate our volunteers. The volunteers are us, and I think you're all doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Cecil. I'll bring the mic down now. Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying about congregations enjoying being together, because there were several things that were a priority for me when I was looking for a congregation 2 years ago. It needed to be in the South because I'm too old to learn how to manage in another part of the country, and I like Southern hospitality. And people needed to enjoy each other and have fun. So here I am with a group of people who enjoy each other and have fun. So that's been a real blessing for me. The commitment of our members and friends is truly amazing. When Teresa, Susan, and I began talking about how to thank our volunteers, we thought naively that it would be simple and nice to get a list of the names of everyone, knowing that regrettably we would probably inadvertently make mistakes, because so much of the work of this community is done quietly, behind the scenes, in silent acts of generosity. As the lists of volunteers came in, it was quite impressive. As you can see, just keep turning page after page. In this, our 60th year, it's also important for us to consider not only those of us who volunteer now, but also imagine all the names we might list if we went back all those 60 years. The commitment of so many people is truly heartwarming. For when we volunteer, we are saying to the rest of us, we believe in you. When we volunteer, we are saying to the larger community, here is a place where I can express my values and act to make change happen. I can help change the world in my unique way that contributes to the causes I hold dear. When we volunteer, we're saying to this community, I'm here because I'm working on my life, and I trust you to help me learn the life lessons that can help me be a happier, more peaceful person. When we volunteer, we are willing to change this community and be changed by our work with others. When we volunteer, we are saying that we have chosen this group of people to find a place of respite from the larger world. Through work and play and silence and music, through our words, our smiles, our helping hands, and our vision of what is yet to be, we build a community that is greater than our individual actions, perspectives, and opinions. We build something greater than ourselves. How can we not be incredibly grateful to one another for the commitment and hard work of each of our friends and members? We cannot say thank you enough to each other. So I invite each of us to be very mindful when we come to a meeting or a covenant group or a meditation group to say thank you over and over again for all the tasks that others do for us. Actually, I felt sort of guilty this morning because there were 5 cars in the parking lot before I got here. And, several people were already hard at work. Your generous acts of service are important and vital to the functioning of this community. It takes us all to keep this congregation healthy and functioning. And I also want to stop for a moment to say how incredibly blessed I am to work with the staff that we have in this community. They're amazing. And I'm so glad that Monica and Paula are here. Teresa's working. We've got just wonderful people who love our children in the nursery. Susan, who is so creative every day and kind and gentle with anyone who calls, whether, they're just calling to say, I lost my directory, I need somebody's telephone number, which happens frequently, and sometimes I'm the one that does that, to, someone died and we need a Unitarian Universalist minister to do the funeral, or we're a mixed couple, mixed religious couple, and there's nobody else who will do a wedding for us. There's so many things, ways in which Susan is so kind and generous. So say thank you to our staff also. This past fall at a leadership retreat, the leaders got together, the board and committee chairs and some other leaders, and we worked to find phrases that encapsulated the essence of our fellowship. I hoped for a bumper sticker, something catchy that strangers could read on our cars. And I confess I was a little OCD and pushy about it. By the end of our retreat, though, we focused on the phrase, open minds, spiritual growth, compassionate action. That somehow all of our activities focused on those phrases. At the meeting, Cecil charged us not to work on our goals and put them on flip chart paper, and then when we left the meeting to stick our goals that we had set up, just stick that flip chart paper behind a door and forget what our goals were, as often happens in meetings in lots of organizations. And really in the daily work of our fellowship, it's easy to get distracted by our myriad of activities and to indeed put our vision and our goals aside. But as Teresa and Susan and I considered what sort of token of gratitude to offer our volunteers, we thought that we would give you something to remind you of the essence of our life together and to fulfill Cecil's wish that we not forget the vision we created. So after some discussion in the office, and with Susan's wonderful design work, we decided on a small token of our appreciation for the work you do every day. It's not a certificate to put in a drawer, it's a bumper sticker. So I'll be happy now for a few months. So it does honor that this community celebrates open minds, spiritual growth, and compassionate action. And as you can see from your bulletin, there are lots of us who volunteer in many different ways. There's some of us who need respite and need to take off a year. There are others of us who are like, this is our year to really jump in and do a lot of things. So as we honor you today, you only get one bumper sticker. But I would suggest that you could, there's room here for you to put hash marks. So if you're involved in 15 or 20 things, just like mark them on your bumper sticker. When we drive past you, we'll go, yep, that's one of those hard workers. So I'd like to invite Karen and Cecil to help us. And I'm going to go through our volunteer activities. And so I invite you to stand if you worked in one of these activities. And they'll give out the bumper stickers. So if you were an adult education teacher this year, please stand up. Meg is here. You can give her a bumper sticker. If you are on the adult education task force, I know there are lots of folks out of town today, but everybody will get their bumper sticker. If you worked on archives, our attendance recorder, here's Carol. If you worked on buildings and grounds, look at those folks. Yes. If you served on the board of trustees, if you're a bulletin board guru, our camp out person, campus ministry, our care committee that Joan inspired and instigated, care committee. Where's Joan? She's an RA, sorry. Okay. Circles of 8. Jackie's here. She organizes that. Communications. Mary and Andy. Our computer guru is not here this morning. He's probably online. Our corresponding secretary. How about our council of committees chair? You already have yours, but stand up. Covenant group facilitators. I'm telling you, I brag about this congregation all the time because I think we have the strongest covenant group program of any congregation I know. Endowment committee. Bill, stand up. Doug needs his own bumper sticker. All those who volunteer or will volunteer with Family Promise. Finance. I know there are a number of people who are traveling today. Here's Janine. Green Sanctuary. Great. Grounds. Lots of work teams. Yes. And the reason we have 2 sections of grounds people is because the computer program wasn't working right and Steve wasn't in the office. So
Steve Johnson on the list, and he's been home for 20 years.
well, we claim him anyway. He helped with a service. So hospitality, that's a herd of people. Hula hike leaders. Legacy committee. Doug's the only person who's here for that. Our library. Carolyn, stand up. And isn't it amazing we now have 3 meditation groups, our meditation group leaders. Membership. And there's Roberta too. The Memorial Garden. Okay, I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're excused.
We did the best we could. The Mystery Theater. That was so fun. I'm ready for another one. The newsletter. Nominating committee. And the most blessed group of volunteers, the flood cleanup. How many people worked on cleaning up and cleaning out? Cecil, raise your hand. There's Meg. Our daily rest. Many, many thanks to Alan for organizing all of that. Outreach. Great. Our parliamentarian. Personnel. Alan's here. Pat's here. Jamie's here. Jamie? Alan, do you already have one? Okay, good. Rebates from Columbus. We just got a $70 check last week. Yes, thank you, Charlotte, for doing that. Our religious education committee. And then stay standing. And what about our religious education teachers? Thank you. Okay, okay. There are 2 more people teaching. Will Thompson isn't here this morning, but he organized the Seder dinner this year. Our service leaders during the last year. Louie's here, Chad, Kathy. Yes, we've got several service leaders. Ed, did you stand up for that? Our shared ministry committee. Nate's here. And Doug's here. Other people are traveling. Our silent auction, which will be happening in August. Our 60th anniversary committee. Whoa, that's great. Our 60 by 60 committee. Raise your hand, Bob. You're on there too. Roberta, raise your hand. Our sound volunteers. Our special music. I'm going to go a little faster because most people by now have a stewardship committee. Our TED Talks, which is part of our, that's for our youth. Our tellers, we never see them because they're over there in the other building. Trading Post, which you get to enjoy this morning. Here's another vast group. How many people have been ushers this year? Carol does a great job of reeling everyone in. Our web design, Wayne is out of town. Our welcome table. The women's salad supper. The Marshes, I know, are out of town. What I'm not seeing, transportation of our canned goods. What I'm not seeing here that must have gotten lost in the emails are Dell, and with his helper Ed, did an amazing job getting and putting up that wonderful equipment in the social hall. So the yard sale, that was hard work. Lots of hard work. then at the end, we say, isn't this amazing? Can we say thank you to each other? So we have a shared litany today. I'll be the leader, y'all can be the congregation. When there was a need, you came forward. In the nighttime or daytime, on weekends, and even in the coldest, darkest part of the year, you helped. Elected and duly appointed